Okay, all right. Well, I see that it's 5:15, so I will call the July 30th, 2024 Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission meeting to order. Suki, may I have you explain translation services?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the public, live interpretation of this entire meeting will be provided in Spanish. To access live interpretation services in Zoom, please click the globe icon in your Zoom webinar controls and then select the Spanish language. At this time, I would like my colleague Kim Larios to provide these instructions in Spanish.
Hi, Suki. I will be providing that. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Kim.
Thank you, no problem. Muy buenas tardes, gracias por su participación en esta reunión. Toda la información se va a dar se traducirá al español. Si gusta tener servicios de interpretación, favor de hacer pulso en el icono al calce de su pantalla, donde hará clic o pulsará en Spanish o español para escuchar toda la reunión en español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you both.
All right, thank you so much. So that brings us into the swearing in of our new commissioner, Kenneth Williams. All right, so you're yeah.
All right. Good evening. Where is Kenneth? I can't see him. Could he raise his hand? Oh, there you are. Okay, Kenneth. Nice to see you. Scotty, it's a pleasure. All righty then. Can I please ask you to raise your right hand? Thank you. And I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. Do you have a copy of the oath in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. So that'll make it nice and smooth. Very well. Please state your name. I. And state your name, please.
Kenneth Williams.
Very well. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
I, Kenneth Williams, do solemnly swear that I support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies.
Okay, against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Thank you. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I will bear truth and faith of the alliance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties that I am about to enter.
That I will, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties I am about to enter.
Very well, congratulations. So there's one other oath that I need to read to you, Kenneth, and that's the oath of confidentiality. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
All righty. So please state your name. I,
Kenneth Williams,
understand that juvenile court matters are confidential.
Understand that juvenile court matters are confidential.
I swear to maintain the confidentiality of all youth, case records, and any other potentially identifying or protected information.
I swear to maintain the confidentiality of all youth, case records, and any other potentially identifying or protected information.
I promise to use discretion, diligence, integrity whenever representing or conducting the business of the commission.
I promise to use discretion, diligence, and integrity whenever representing or conducting the business of the commission.
Congratulations, Kenneth. Congratulations. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you with us. Thank you. Welcome. Okay, so now we will do our roll call to establish a quorum.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll start with Commissioner Huber Levy is absent. Commissioner Montani? Thank you. Commissioner Blanco?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Bocanegra?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginevra is absent. Commissioner Jackson is absent. Commissioner Amaya Nori is absent. Commissioner Satwik Nori? Thank you. Commissioner Swope?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Uhila Hauta is absent. Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Thank you. And then Chair Rasmussen.
Here, thank you so much.
We have a quorum, so please proceed.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to call for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Either, do we have any comments either here in person or on Zoom? I do see a hand up on Zoom. You want to take that?
Sure, yes. Wesley Liu, I'll give you the permission to speak, so please proceed.
Hi, thank you. Yes. First I wanted to congratulate, Kenneth, on joining the commission. I think you'll do great work on the commission, and I hope that you continue the work that I did, and also work on a bunch of very fun projects. And it was great to serve with you, and now you're formally on, so I think you'll have a great time. But today I also wanted to comment on AB 169, which was passed in 2023. But it was officially enacted, at least the most important part, on July 1st. And what it did was it made the OICR the designated state agency for complying with the Juvenile Justice Reform Act of 2018. That's a federal law. So it changed the designated state agency from BSCC to OICR. And part of that role is that they collect data on youth adjudication across the state and youth commitment to secure youth treatment facilities. But they're also supposed to collect data on racial disparities. And the counties are supposed to be reporting this data in a designated interval. So it'd be interesting to just keep that in mind and make sure that we get that data when OICR publicizes it. But now they're starting to do this work, and I'm very excited for what lies ahead. So thank you so much, and I'll be listening here. Hope you guys are having fun over there.
Thank you, Wesley.
Thank you, Wesley. I don't see any other hands raised and no speakers from this meeting rooms, so that's end of public comment.
Thank you so much. All right, so now's the time to set the agenda. Do I have a motion to?
I move we accept the agenda as distributed.
A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Bocanegra, second. Commissioner Swope made the motion. All right, and we'll have a roll call vote, or do we?
You can do all in favor.
Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda as distributed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the vote's unanimous. All right, so now we're on to the approval of the June 25th, 2024 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as distributed, or any comments regarding any edits that need to be made? Done? Okay, a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
I'll make a motion.
All right, thank you. Second? Perfect. Commissioner Swope, second? All right, wonderful. Moving right along.
All in favor?
Oh, yes, thank you. So all in favor of approving the minutes as they were distributed, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those who are abstaining? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so now we are here. We are up to the point for our presentation by the Sheriff's Department. The commission has been working on two really important issues. One is juvenile gangs, and the other is juvenile substance use in the county. And so I reached out to Christina Corpus and asked if we might have someone from the Narcotics Task Force and the Gang Task Force come out to speak with us about what they're seeing out on the street. And I was pleasantly surprised to hear back from the Assistant Sheriff, Brian Monahan, that he could actually come out and provide us with a presentation. I understand that he is on his way now. We got through things a little bit quicker than we expected, but he did send 3 representatives to join him in his presentation. Would you like to get started in his absence? Oh, perfect. There we go. Well, welcome. Perfect timing. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Is the timing good?
It's perfect. I was just announcing that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, wherever you feel comfortable, do we know where?
Did you get my power?
I sure did. You want to start there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
How do you guys want me to do it? You want me to stand? You want me to sit?
Whatever-
How do you guys want me to
however
do
you're
it? Whatever you
comfortable.
guys are comfortable.
However you're
All right.
comfortable.
Well, that sounds good.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and introduce you. So this is our Assistant Sheriff for San Mateo County, Ryan Monahan. He was raised in San Mateo County. He went to Sarah, so he's very local. And he worked in the San Mateo Police Department for over 26 years, which, as we all know, San Mateo and Redwood City typically tie for the most incarcerated youth in the county. So you really have a handle on what's going on. You've seen it firsthand in all your years. And so when Christina Corpus was elected to be our sheriff, she brought on Ryan Monahan. So we're very happy to have you here. And I will go ahead
and I'll say CSM is kind of near and dear to me. I've done a lot of trainings here over the years, and I actually was a part-time adjunct professor up here, so I did a little criminal justice class. So a great campus, great to be here. So
okay, so let's slideshow. Let's see. Ready from start. Okay. There we go. All right, you're welcome.
And as I just kind of go along, I'll have you're good with the perfect. Thank you, Johanna. So the first thing I just wanted to say thank you for having me here. I did bring some team members of mine. They just quickly introduce themselves. From both, we have in our county, what we have is our countywide gang and narcotics task force. Within that task force, we have a unit that focuses primarily on gang activity. We have another unit that focuses primarily on narcotics and the traffic in narcotics. And I will say that a vast majority of what they're looking into now is fentanyl cases, because that really is of the most concern to us. It's lethal. And, we know in order to save lives, we need to not only mitigate it, educate people on it. So it really is a major area of focus. And you'll see that a lot of the presentation today will focus on that one topic because it is so vast. I will say this, in terms of data on juveniles, we're still really trying to hone in as a county on how to collect that accurately and get better data. But it is something I know that us as a sheriff's office right now are looking into ways to use the existing computer-aided dispatch and reporting systems that we have to better extract that data from the reporting mechanisms. We do get quite a few overdoses. Thankfully, at least the data that we were presenting to you most recently, it doesn't involve juveniles, but I don't care if you're an adult or a juvenile. Any life that is affected by this is a life that we care about. It's a life that we need to address. That's somebody's parent, right? That's somebody's child. But that being said, I'm joined by really, I kind of think, the experts. And the reason why I brought them is, as you folks, as I finish the presentation, it's been a while since I've been out on the streets actually doing this stuff. At one point in time in my career, this was an area of expertise for me. But these trends rapidly evolve with both gangs and narcotics. They're constantly changing and evolving. And so I'm a little bit out of practice from what I used to do out on the streets. These folks are tracking on what's going on in the county. They're working it every day. And really, they're the subject matter experts. So should you have questions, we'll have them. But I'll start with Matt, if you just want to quickly introduce yourself and then go along.
Yeah, I'm Matt Solano, I'm a deputy with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, but I'm assigned to the narcotics task force.
Everybody, I'm Sergeant Mauricio Arcila. I've been in the gang unit for 4 years. That's really where more of my experience is in gangs throughout our county. And
I'm Anthony Belafronte, deputy with the Sheriff's Office, newly assigned to the gang unit.
Wonderful, welcome. Thank you for being here.
All right, and we'll start with the first slide and we'll get kind of into it. We'll start off with opioids. So the first is kind of opioids, because fentanyl is an opioid. So just giving a basic understanding of what opioids are. And we're just trying to set the stage a little bit. So as I go through and move through the PowerPoint, you understand we're all on the same page in terms of what we're talking about. It's a narcotic substance. It's extracted from the poppy plant. Oftentimes, we'll see this in heroin. It's the most common opioid that we see out. But there are many legal uses for opioids as well. Morphine and some of these pharmaceutical grade drugs that are used in hospitals. It's highly addictive, non-synthetic in that, it's grown by the poppy plant. That's where we get opioids from. Opium, heroin, morphine, codeine, these are just some of the different types of drugs out there that are opioid-based drugs. The majority of the world's opium is grown in Afghanistan or Southeast Asia. That's where the largest crops are for that. And really it's limited by time and cultivation needs. So anytime you're dealing with naturally grown substances, right, there's limitations on where they can grow it, how they can grow it, how they can pick it. So we'll go to the next slide. Opioids are substances that act on the opioid receptors and produce like a morphine-like effect. So it makes people feel very, it's a very calm and easy feeling. It's sedative. Oftentimes you'll see people on fentanyl or opioids, they'll be kind of nodding off. That's very common to see that because of the effects that it has. It's naturally occurring in opium. And opium, morphine, and codeine, again, this is where you see it most commonly. It's also it's synthesized from substances found in opium. So things like heroin, hydrocodone, oxycodone, and hydromorphine. And these synthesized substances are not from opium, but they're synthetic. And this is where we start to branch off into fentanyl, right? Is with any drug, oftentimes they find ways to synthetically make this drug. And the problem with that is it's much easier and you can be far more productive, right? When you're creating the substance yourself as opposed to being reliant on a crop. So we'll go to the next slide. Believe it or not, there is approved FDA approval of this back in 1968. So there are uses for fentanyl, especially in medicinal purposes, right? Oftentimes it's used for people that are also oftentimes terminally ill. And again, it helps to put them more into a calm state. Oftentimes you'll see it with people that are terminally ill, they're laboring, their breathing is very labored. This will help to calm that down to make them comfortable. There's two types, again, pharmaceutical fentanyl and then the illegally made fentanyl. Most of the illegally made fentanyl is coming out of Mexico, and the chemicals traditionally come from China and India. That's where they're sourcing those chemicals from. It's an anesthetic, right? It's a pain relief, very, very, very strong pain. It causes relaxation, a sense of euphoria, sedation, confusion. Oftentimes when we find folks and they're coming out of a state of this, they're very confused. They don't know where they're at. Common forms, powder, liquid, pill, pain, and patches. And really want to hammer home some of the common forms because awareness is so key, I think, for you groups as you advocate for our juveniles out there, the parents and the folks that are watching this, that awareness of this is what's going to help save lives. And then the next slide. It's currently the most dangerous drug out there. There is no more dangerous drug in terms of what we're seeing out on the streets than fentanyl. It is definitely a crisis. We would call it that because what, in my opinion, a crisis is any life lost is a life lost, and when it's caused by something like this, it's a crisis, right? It's currently a Schedule II narcotic, so it is controlled. It's controlled by the Controlled Substance Act. Estimated to be 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. So that's to put it in perspective. Again, morphine is oftentimes what's used with people that are terminally ill. This is 50 to 100 times more powerful. So it just gives you an idea of the dosage amount of how powerful that can be. There's been a major increase in the import of fentanyl and synthetic drugs that resemble fentanyl characteristics. And I will say that for the Northern California region, San Francisco, unfortunately, is the hub. We see a lot of fentanyl coming in and out of San Francisco. That's definitely the distribution center for fentanyl in this area. It's odorless, it's tasteless. It can be absorbed through the mucous membranes, mouth, nasal passages, and eyes. I will say that we even caution our deputies and any folks, that may come around this substance, that it can penetrate through your skin, and so have to be extremely cognizant of that. Next slide. 1 kilo has the potential to kill over 500,000 people by overdose. That's 1 kilogram. Okay, that's how potent this stuff is. It's the factor. The fentanyl is a factor in over 72% of overdose rates, of overdose deaths that we're seeing nationally, and drug overdose deaths are up 30% year to year. And I will say that I can anecdotally say this is largely attributed to the fentanyl crisis. The next slide. And then just to give you an idea of how much is lethal, there's a penny, and that little tiny speck next to the penny is a lethal dosage. Okay, that's just enough to be lethal, and that's 2 milligrams. That's all it takes. So next slide. Overdoses. These are some California stats. We'll get into San Mateo County, but between 2000 and 2021, California's opioid-related deaths spiked 121%. Some folks theorize that maybe COVID and some of these other things may have had a factor in this, people self-medicating and other factors that may be involved with this. But the vast majority of these deaths were linked to fentanyl. For context, in 2021, more Californians, this one really got me, more Californians died from fentanyl overdoses than car accidents. In the state of California, folks, where we have the most traffic and the most heavily congested roadways. Nearly 8,000 adolescents ages 15 to 19 died of opioid overdose between 1999 and 2016, at least that data set we do have. And unfortunately, the trend we have seen has been increasingly, unfortunately, it's increasing steadily over the last decade. Next slide. So according to, again, now we're looking again at adolescents, okay, according to the Department of Education, that keeps some stats on this, this is in 2012, okay, so going back to 2012, California suffered 82 deaths at that time from fentanyl overdoses. In 2021, 6,000, right? So that's how much this has promulgated itself and got out there in the community. Fentanyl deaths are accounted for 80% of all drug-related deaths that we see in California and young people. Very true. The sad part of that is in many cases, these are accidental. And these are kids experimenting with what they think is Xanax or another drug. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's been laced with this. Unfortunately, they're lacing more and more drugs with fentanyl because of the effects that it has. And again, small dosage equals big high. And that for the folks that sell that, that's important. So most of our young victims right there ingested accidentally. They were thinking that they were using something less dangerous. We see that time and time again. In cases where a kid will ingest something, oh, hey, this is a Xanax pill or something, and it's going to relax you. It's got fentanyl in it, and that's. If you want, we can save questions till the end, or do you want to do them as we go through? It's up to you guys. However you guys want to work.
Do you have a question?
Do you have a question?
I was just wondering, is there any way that someone could test to see if there's fentanyl in the drugs they've gotten off the street? Because that's where they get most of them, right?
There are ways to do that. I can have these guys talk a little bit about some of the tools that we use to test narcotics to see for the presence of fentanyl.
Yeah,
But
so,
but some kid couldn't do it, couldn't test, could they?
yeah, so when you're on the street, we buy a gram of fentanyl per se. In that gram is only going to be 2 milligrams of pure fentanyl, and then the other stuff we call kind of a filler. So it's going to be like a diuretic, like mannitol is used. So they mix the mannitol and the fentanyl to make that gram. So when we even test on the street with the TrueNarc device that uses lasers inside of it, right, you have to hit on that 2 milligrams. So a lot of times it'll come back inconclusive, it'll come back as mannitol because it's such a small amount of the illicit narcotic that it's coming back more on the cutting agent than the actual drug. So if you had test kits, you might test something and it's not going to come back.
It can still kill you.
But it can still kill you if you do the whole gram. It's very hard to, because it's such a finite amount of illicit narcotic in the gross cut agent, it's still hard to find the actual drug in it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's really important to memorize. We're dealing with these milligrams, right? Just such small amounts. And the TrueNarc devices that we use, it uses laser technology. So it's a fairly advanced device. But because of the potency of this, even that has to be kind of accurate into where it pinpoints to detect.
Lots of false
And
negatives.
I always say, when in doubt, don't take it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's one of the, and unfortunately, it is the fastest growing cause of death for young people that we're seeing in our state.
Yeah, that's very serious.
Yeah, very, very serious. So next slide. So San Mateo, this is some statistics kind of related to our office. So out of 68 Narcan and fentanyl flag cases, and when we talk about Narcan, I will talk a little bit about that later on, but it is a drug that actually counteracts the effects of opioids and particularly fentanyl. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through this presentation. But these are cases that we flagged internally in the sheriff's office. The good news, if you want to call it good news, and again, I don't know that I would call this good news, is that we had only one victim. That was a juvenile. Still, however you want to look at it, it's bad news, right? Because we still have adults, and in this case, well, someone under the age, someone under the legal drinking age, but an adult, but still young, 19 years old, right? You're a teen. And this was in one suspected fentanyl overdose case. And the witness on scene, and this is really important again, because it kind of speaks to some of the trends that we're seeing. The witness on scene said they thought they purchased cocaine. Again, right, they're lacing all sorts of different types of drugs and masking this in different types of drugs, which presents a great danger to the folks out there because they think they're getting something different than what they're getting. So that being said, again, one of our areas of focus as we move forward as an organization in the sheriff's office is better extrapolation of this data from our existing reporting systems, so that we can really kind of hone in not only on fentanyl, on the times that we use Narcan, and that's important for a couple reasons, and I'll touch on that later, and then specific to our youth, right? Because where are the trends? Where do we need to provide education and intervention? Next slide.
Here we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So here, again, seen through past investigations through San Mateo County juveniles, they primarily are ingesting it, which is what we see pretty much the trend across the nation. They're primarily ingesting this via counterfeit pills. Again, that's a Xanax, that's a different type of pill that they think, hey, this is just a prescription drug, it's no big deal. You take a little bit of this, douse it with a little alcohol, it'll give you a neat effect. And so that's how we're normally seeing it. But unfortunately, what they're getting is a counterfeit that has fentanyl in it. The most common counterfeit pills that we're seeing in San Mateo County, when we do see it, when our agents are coming across it, they're seeing it in the form of Xanax and counterfeit oxycodone pills. Those are the ones that we're seeing this most. And the reason for that is we know that a lot of folks target these types of prescription drugs for that effect, right? They can crush them up. It's easier to get them than, sometimes it's easier to get them than heroin because maybe mom and dad have it in the medicine cabinet. You can crush it up, you can melt it, you can inject it. There's all sorts of different things that they could do. So unfortunately, and then people are selling them illegally on the streets. So these kids think that they're buying a Xanax as opposed to what they're really buying is fentanyl. Another common counterfeit pill that we're seeing with juveniles is Adderall. I don't know if you guys have heard about that trend, but there's a lot of folks using Adderall. We see this with our college students as well, because Adderall has a stimulant effect. If you're staying up all night, you're studying for finals, you need a little bump, sometimes kids will take Adderall. Again, unfortunately, the folks that are dealing in fentanyl have learned that. They're starting to get some of this stuff into, and the reason why is they're trying to get the addiction and get people coming back for the fentanyl. Next slide. Here's some overdose by county. So this is from the California Department of Health. In 2022, San Mateo County ranked significantly lower than the surrounding counties related to opioid deaths. I'm not okay with that. I don't want to rank anywhere, quite honestly. I don't think any of our agents want to rank anywhere. We want to be zeros. That's the goal, right? But you can look at where we're at, and there's some numbers for you that just kind of put that into perspective. Next slide. And then again, we did a little bit of county comparison, kind of what we're seeing in our specific area. And these charts represent opioid-related overdose deaths by age and county. And so you can see San Mateo County, where we're seeing the greatest in age is in that adult range. And I think if you look, for us, it's like in the 30, I think it's in the 30 to like the 50, 30 to 40 range. In that range, 25 to like 40, maybe would be that kind of that spot where we're seeing most of them. We're not seeing as many in the juveniles, but we still, if you look there, between 15 and 19 years old, right, there is a number that we're seeing there. And then, when you go down to 5 years or younger, right, we've seen that as well. That could be an accidental ingestion or something of that nature. Now, these are deaths. So these numbers actually represent deaths. So that's important to keep track. Compare that to Santa Clara County. Their numbers are a little higher across the board. We'll go to the next slide. And then that's just numbers from Alameda County and San Francisco County. So if you look at just overall trends, our numbers are lower. But again, I think that's not what we're shooting for here, folks. We're shooting for zeros across the board, right? Next slide. So this is just for awareness for you all to see how fentanyl comes out and the different forms that it comes out. It comes out in a powder form there. You can see that they often will mask it in different colors. That's not done by accident. That's done very much to attract the user, and they are unfortunately trying to attract a younger user. And the reason for that is if we can get them hooked on it younger, you've got a customer for life if they live. And unfortunately, I don't think the folks that deal with this are necessarily out to necessarily kill people, but they know the dangers involved, and they know that if they get folks hooked on this, that they're going to have a customer for at least a longer duration of time. And so again, very much if you look at those pills, that colorfulness, it's going to attract a younger audience. The next slide. And then just how to kind of generally tell the difference between what we're seeing between the fakes and the real drug. So we pulled out 2, Xanax and oxycodone, because again, these are the ones that we're seeing the ones that we see most prevalently in our county. And you can kind of see the slight difference there. In the real one with the Xanax, real defined lines, you can really see that Xanax spelled out. And then on the fake, it's almost like it's whitewashed, not as deep lines, not as deep distinction. And then again, on the fakes, you see on the lower one, you have the actual pill, and then on the top, you have the fakes. Again, it's a lighter color, a little bit different than the real one. But again, that takes someone with some other trained eye to be able to really observe those differences. And I bring this up because very easy to mistake for the real thing. So next slide. Fentanyl-laced drugs. We referred to that 19-year-old earlier that had an overdose, thought he bought cocaine. So we're seeing this, unfortunately, getting laced into a lot of different types of drugs. This is a method for street-level drug distributors to increase and strengthen their supply, right, by mixing it in with another drug. There's a fentanyl heroin mix. That's probably the most common because they're taking 2 opioids, a natural opioid and a synthetic opioid. They're joining that together for an improved high for the person. Fentanyl also uses a mixture of methamphetamine and MDMA, which is basically MDMA is ecstasy. And so we're also seeing it in cocaine and as a base for crack cocaine. Oftentimes, crack cocaine is a small amount of cocaine mixed in with a base like baking soda, other cutting agents that they'll cook it with together to make it a little bit larger, increase the weight. And now we see folks, because again, they can use such a small amount, they're lacing it with fentanyl as well. Fentanyl cannot be detected in other drugs just by looking at it. Okay, so if you look at it, naked eye, you're not going to see that. Why is it so prevalent? Because it makes money. The potential profit, 1 kilo of pure fentanyl can produce 1 million pills. Okay, so 1 million counterfeit pills. That's a whole lot of pills with 1 kilogram. If each pill is sold for $20, right, the potential profit is $20 million right there, right? So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that can be made very easily. It's easy to transport. Again, as I noted, the size of this, because it is so small, it's very easy to conceal. And it's increasing demand, and it's extremely, extremely addictive. Once someone tries this, there's a very good likelihood they're going to get hooked. So next slide. So what are we doing about it? That's, I think, most critical part, because that's the part that's constantly evolving. That's the part that we're constantly examining to see what we're doing to combat this. San Mateo County Law Enforcement Agencies, as well as our Narcotics Task Force, which Detective Solano is a part of, they've arrested numerous fentanyl dealers. We know that we have to get the supply off the street. We collaborate with local, state, and federal partners to track that trafficking. As a matter of fact, up in San Francisco, we have our Northern California Regional Intelligence Center. That is a fusion center where it takes information, and one of their areas of focus, because that fusion center is constantly pivoting. What are the trends? What are the things that are causing the biggest public safety concerns for the people in our communities? and what do we need to be focused on, they've had a major focus on fentanyl, tracking it, helping to collaborate, bring together resources. We've even had folks from the National Guard in San Francisco helping out, intelligence agents up there to help gather intelligence so we know where it's coming from and how to interdict it, most importantly, so that we can get it off the streets before it ever reaches the users. That's the hope. Unfortunately, some of the laws regarding fentanyl distribution have not yet caught up to the drugs true dangers. And the reason why I say that is, oftentimes we'll get folks that are arrested for dealing, and they're in and out fairly quickly, and without any kind of rehabilitation or direction or services to push them in different direction, right? It's very easy to go back to this, because if you got to put food on the table, this is an easy way to make money with, right? So the other thing we're doing in terms of, working with our legislators is important. I think there's a lot of groups out there that we work with. I know the sheriff's very involved, the California State Sheriff's Association and other groups that are really trying to look and track at these numbers and make sure that the laws match what the true lethality is of the drug, right? Educational awareness training for students, school, and parents. Our task force agents are doing that on the regular. We're going out to schools, we're going out to parents, we're talking to students. They have training that's geared towards the students. They have training that's geared towards the parents. And it's a collaboration with our school districts to make sure that they know what to look for, so that the teachers know how to identify it, the school officials know how to identify it, the parents know how to identify it, right? Again, because that's the key, it's prevention. Once they take it, the likelihood of lethality is high. So we want to stop it before it ever gets to the user. Next slide. When an overdose occurs in San Mateo County, we have a protocol that we follow. So two separate investigations occur simultaneously. The coroner is going to do an independent investigation into the cause of death. And at the same time, we have one of our task force agents is going to be called out. So they are often called out to the scene of one of those overdoses. They're looking for any evidence that would track them back to the person or the source of the drugs. A lot of the DA's office, and I know our DA's office, Steve Wagstaff's commitment is that if we have evidence that can show who the dealer was in these cases, that we can start to charge these as homicide cases. It's very new. We're seeing this as a new trend in California. Some other counties have done it successfully. We're trying to follow that suit. But again, in our county, when one of these things happen, we take it very seriously. If a deputy goes out to the scene, they suspect that fentanyl's involved, they're immediately going to enact this protocol where they call one of our agents out, and then the agents are going to be looking at that. Any little bit of information that can help to lead us back to the potential dealer. Could be cell phone records, it could be interviewing family members, friends, other folks, again, that are going to lead us back to the source. So we always attempt to determine who sold it to the victim. And again, it's done by searching the cell phones if we can, by search warrant, by seeking evidence. And the goal is, right, if we can get sufficient evidence for a homicide arrest, we're going to do that. And I know the DA's office is going to prosecute if we have the sufficient evidence to do that. So next slide. Again, this is just some seizures we've had here in our county. Gives you an idea of some of the stuff that we're pulling right off the streets here in San Mateo County. This is the stuff that you're seeing out there. Again, you'll notice very colorful. Going to attract, right? That very colorful design is going to attract your younger users. But that's just an idea, again, of some of the seizures that we've had. We'll go to the next slide. And this is a 2-year summary, and that SMCNTF stands for the San Mateo County Narcotics Task Force. That is a countywide collaborative. It is not only the sheriff's office is the lead agency in that, but we have several other agencies from the county that participate in this collaborative and provide resources and both staffing and other resources to help us combat this problem. And you'll see, if you look at the numbers, just between 2021 to 2022, look at the increase we've had in seizures. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing. It's a good thing in the sense, I guess, that we're doing our job or taking off our streets. It's a bad thing in the sense that there's more of this stuff out there for us to seize, and that's the problem. So next slide. What is being done about the fentanyl crisis right here in San Mateo County and with our sheriff's office? We're providing educational awareness, and we're starting younger folks. We've got to educate them at a much younger age, right? We're getting to our middle age kids, because we know that's, and unfortunately, where some of this experimentation is starting, and starting in middle school. Our agents are also providing educational awareness to school staff, parents of teenage youths. And again, it's what are the current trends? How can you identify this? What things do you need to be aware of? Next slide. What is Narcan? Really important. We have this. It's such a powerful drug in terms of reversing the effects of opioids. And literally, I've used this on a person, and it's almost instantaneous how they kind of come back once the drug gets in there, because it has almost an instantaneous effect. All of our deputies and many of the other police agencies in this county are carrying fentanyl on their vests. All of our deputies are carrying it, and they're oftentimes reading. I read shift notes every day. Shift notes is what happened in the previous activity. We have 5 different patrol bureaus in the sheriff's office, and it's not uncommon for me to read about a case where someone's used fentanyl on somebody. We see it.
Narcan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Narcan, not fentanyl. Yes, use Narcan on somebody that's a suspected fentanyl overdose. You know, if you look at our different bureaus, believe it or not, one of the areas where we're seeing a lot of this is in Millbrae, and a lot of times it's folks coming in and out off of the bar. Right? And a lot of times we had one person that overdosed not too long ago, an adult that had a bunch of receipts from Oakland, and just ended up in our jurisdiction. So we're seeing this in towns like Millbrae historically, where we really hadn't seen that before. Again, most of it is a transitory population. They're using BART to come in and out of the city. So again, it reverses an opioid overdose. Extremely powerful, extremely effective. It attaches to the receptors and basically blocks the effects of the opioids. That's why sometimes when we apply it, you see the person instantaneously come back. It can be used for heroin, fentanyl, oxycodone, hydrocodone, codeine, morphine. It's available over the counter. Again, all of our deputies carry it on duty. Not only that, our sheriff is so committed to this, she's gone a step farther, where our folks, our incarcerated population, again, we're hoping that we're leaving them better when they walk out, right? But, and we give them a lot of drug and alcohol addiction type therapy while they're in-house to make sure that when they get out, they're equipped with the skills and the tools, right? Unfortunately, not to fall back into that cycle. But we have a dispenser right there in our jail, so that when family members are there of these loved ones, may have other family members that are using, we'll give them free Narcan. We want to get this stuff out there. We want people to use it. We want to save lives. This, you know, it's real simple for the sheriff. When we can save lives, then the cost is well worth, the investment is well worth it, right? Next slide. We have Narcan readily available for school staff and parents dealing with high-risk use. That's what you can do, right? These are some of the things. This is how you all can help us. This is how you all can spread the word amongst your constituents, is have it readily available, right? You need to have this stuff on school with school staff. Parents should have it, right? Dealing with any risk that's that's at risk. And I would go a step farther to say there's no harm in having it in your house, right? You never know when one of your kids' friends or someone else may come in, and you may unfortunately have to deal with one of these. Continue to provide education. Education is key. Cannot stress that enough on the uses and dangers. Unfortunately, a lot of our youth just do not realize the inherent dangers with this drug. And unfortunately, without ongoing education and ongoing reminders, it's easy to fall into the trap, right? Know the symptoms of opioid use and addiction, and have resources readily available if you suspect that a teen's using this. You've got to intervene early. You got to intervene hard. We got to do whatever we can to get them off it. Next slide. And we'll move into, we'll stop there. I'll take a brief pause if you have any questions related to this topic.
Thank you so much.
And then I'll go through the gang stuff, and then we can finish with that. This presentation is much shorter. The gang was.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really insightful. I thought I knew a lot about fentanyl, and I realized that I didn't know very much at all. That was really a lot of good information. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Blanco.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for a very informative presentation. My question is regarding education at our schools. I think we need to start earlier. I know that there's a trend with student gang activity during 4th, 5th grade. So I think the education piece to our parents and to our students should start earlier. So I don't know Are you having requests to come to elementary schools?
You know, we haven't had a lot of requests, but I think there's a lot of validity to your point there. Right? I don't know if it's maybe a fear of trying to introduce something like that at a younger age. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, right, we know our kids are going to get introduced to this. And I don't care if they go to school in San Mateo County. I don't care where they go to school. At some point, there's going to be an opportunity to be introduced to this. So the earlier education is probably good when, you know, I guess at that point where the kids are probably most receptive to really kind of understand it. Maybe in the latter part of the elementary school. We have not had any requests, but it doesn't mean that we can't do something kind of targeting the elementary schools. I know we have a really good relationship with our county board of office of education. We're heavily involved with them. We have a safety liaison for the school that is phenomenal. And it's not just safety in terms of the violent intruder threat. That's a real threat, unfortunately, nowadays. It's also the threat presented by narcotics. So that's something else. We have a meeting coming up with our school district, and I will actually bring that forward to them and see, you know, what's the pulse like on this and in terms of that based on your recommendation.
I have a suggestion. I did attend a school I was doing some time ago when there was a report, and the task force was there presenting on this same exact topic. And I gotta be honest, I don't think our schools are doing enough in regards to education. And the reason why I'm telling this is because I myself am a school board member of an elementary school district here in San Mateo County, San Bruno. And I myself as a parent, I have 5 children, I've seen them come through. My oldest is 33 and my youngest is 14, but I just haven't seen enough of drug education in our public schools. And so I would like to see, since we do have this partnership with our county Office of Ed, is that I'd like to see some sort of campaign this year, hopefully, since you said you're going to be meeting with them, so that they can send information. And we all get emails from notifications from the county Office of Ed, and so, but I have yet to really see some sort of campaign that we're gonna come and we'll start hitting strong and have this education in our schools. And I think whatever parents may feel, whether they're fearful or not, but this is real, this is happening. And I don't think this is a time for us as parents to be naive and to not think that it's not happening in our backyards when it is. So, and next door, really. So anyways, I like just to make that suggestion to see if you all can collaborate and try to just kind of come up strong with some sort of campaign moving forward.
And I'll take a step further. I'm going to leave my
Just a
email.
suggestion.
I'll leave my email address at the end of the slides. I also have a business card with me if you want to follow up with me after I go to that meeting. I think the meeting's coming up towards the end of August. So at least I can follow up with you to get some more information. I think that's important. As a parent myself of someone in an elementary school, I'm right there with you. So.
So,
Any other questions?
I think young parents need to know too, because we've had 2 or 3 tragedies where the parents were the ones who were using the fentanyl, and the child, I probably didn't ingest it. It was probably absorbed through the skin or breathed in or
Absolutely.
gone.
I mean, to that point, one of the things we do, you know, anytime we get our folks, and this is something I think the sheriff's really passionate about, what excites me about working in the office is that, especially with our incarcerated population, right? What can we do? The goal is, what can we do to equip them better? And unfortunately, right, with some of these folks that are coming in are parents, right? We want to get them back out to their kids as soon as we can, because we know that when they're in there and that separation from the kids is not a good thing. But so many of them are coming in addicted to fentanyl and to some of these drugs. So getting in that robust counseling and the education and the awareness of how it can impact their kids, right? And the dangers associated. So we try to do that when we have them, but we got to get that out to a larger audience, right? So
Years and years ago, I worked for a project called the Early Childbearing and Child Rearing Consortium. I was part of the Child Welfare League of America. And in our studies, we found lots of times teen parents were ignorant. They simply didn't know how a child develops. They didn't know how easily you can hurt a child. And when they knew, then they were okay, but they needed to know. And this is something that I think is critical for young parents to know.
Yeah, I would ask the detectives in terms of where most of your outreach and education is taking place, like, you know, where communities that you're targeting or maybe some of the schools.
Absolutely. On my end, on the gang side of things, we have been contacted a lot for many high schools and middle school as well. I personally have taught classes for middle school students who are interested in gangs themselves, who are being kind of located by teachers or school staff who have been, you know, being found with graffiti or some sort of drawings that are related to gangs. And that's based on previous classes that we've done to the teachers to as far as gang recognition and prevention, which we do all the time, as well as parents. I've taught classes in Spanish for the parents as well, and we've been getting a lot of. They want more of those classes. I've done them all over the county, but in my experience, I've seen it the most in high schools. We have seen it gang activity in middle schools as well. I personally have not seen elementary, and we just haven't been reached out to them maybe because of the age. They just don't want to reach out to us yet. So we are. But it's definitely in our schools, and it's something that as a gang unit, we've definitely gone out there to schools, to parents, staff, and parents. But it's definitely something that we're gonna continue to work on.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do you know if other county facilities or police departments are taking on the same practice as the sheriff's department and distributing free Narcan?
Yeah. So in terms of the free Narcan, that I don't know. But I do know that pretty much countywide, every agency is carrying the Narcan. This is something that we committed to as a county a long time ago to make sure that those folks out on the streets that have the most impact, that are there the quickest, have them. So in terms of who's handing it out, I'd have to get back to you on that because I don't know exactly what agencies are. I know it's.
Would you recommend that maybe those agencies and facilities hand it out? Because it sounds like that spike from 2,000 to 31,000. Those are scary numbers.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't hurt, right? At least from what I'm seeing from a trend wise, there's, I think there may be different thoughts on that, and it's probably gonna vary from community to community on what the community thoughts and needs are, because it is very much specific to the community. But the way I look at this is more of a global problem, right? So it far surpasses just the walls of our county.
Well, if you're advocating for the elementary schools to receive this, then we should follow suit from the bottom up. Make sure that everyone has access to it.
That's a good thing for me to follow up on, just at least to find out if that's in fact happening. I won't say that it's not happening. I'm just not aware of where it is happening. So,
Thank you so much. And I just had one quick addition I wanted to add. A lot of the children that I work with in the Bay Area, they talk about lean. They talk about Percocets, that they think they're getting these Percocets, right? But they also talk about this thing called lean that I don't really quite understand. But it's something like a mixture of cough syrup and fentanyl and some other things. Maybe could someone shed some light on this, on lean?
So, lean.
Yeah.
That's gonna be like a cough syrup, codeine. There's a couple famous people that have been addicted to it, Little Wayne.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, you could theoretically, you can mix fentanyl with anything. I'm not super positive I've ever encountered lean with fentanyl.
Okay.
Not saying that it doesn't happen, but I don't think I've ever encountered lean with fentanyl.
So what is the concoction of lean? What makes up lean?
Usually it's going to be like a cutting agent, like a Sprite or some other type of over-the-counter soda drink, and then codeine, which is like a cough syrup.
Okay.
And you drink it, and you kind of have like a euphoric, floating feeling. It's kind of like a baby version of Xanax.
Okay.
This is how I would best describe it.
Thank you so much. And you hear it a lot in the music. You hear a lot about lean and Percocets in the music. How do you spell it? Lean. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So now on to
we'll talk about some of the gang trends. Again, this will move a little quicker for you guys. Not that it's equally as important, but the information is a little more condensed. So what you have there is just some basic kind of what we would say typical gang graffiti that we see in this area in San Mateo County. The X1, the Roman numerals there to the left is representative, right, of 18. It's significant of the Norteño, which is a criminal street gang. The other one there is you have the X3, which is, which is, I'm sorry, that's 13. So
Okay, I was,
the Roman numerals.
hold on a second.
So that's commonly seen. That, or what you see in the middle there, is all what we would call Sereno gang graffiti.
Excuse me, that would be a Norteño game, that is an XIV.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yes, that is, yes.
14.
That's the 14. We have the 13 in the middle and on the right-hand side. So Norteño's on the left side. Again, that's significant to the 14th letter of the alphabet, which is the letter N. And then why the X3 with the Sureños, 13th letter of the alphabet, which is the letter M, and M for Mexican Mafia, which is the prison gang from which the Sureños kind of evolved from. So those are probably, when we look at gang activity in San Mateo County, the most prevalent ones that we're seeing in this county is probably Norteño Sureño sects of different sects. They may be called different names, but they're falling under the umbrella of either a Norteño or Sureño. Predominant colors, oftentimes when you see Norteños, predominant colors used to be red, Sureños blue. The trends have changed. When I was in this business, out there on the streets, it was very prevalent, the red and blues. Now folks are getting a little smarter about that, right? If they know that, hey, this color is significant with a particular gang, they're going to be a lot more incognito. We see them wearing black. We see them wearing sports teams like the Sureños. Sometimes we'll be wearing Raiders gear. Back in the day when Los Angeles was associated with the Raiders were associated with Los Angeles. So there's different ways to kind of mask that association and not be so forward-facing about it. Next slide. So we have, again, two of our detectives here from our gang intelligence unit, and really their role here, this is a countywide collaborative, is to gather intelligence, right? What are the trends? What are the things we see? Not only so that we can go out there and mitigate, but again, one of the key components to all this is prevention. The more we know, the more we can reach out to youth at the right age and hopefully prevent them from going down this path, right? So they've observed a rise in juvenile gang-related activity, particularly in Half Moon Bay and our North Fair Oaks area. Fortunately, we saw a spike in that here in the sheriff's office in the latter part of 2023, going into the early part of 2024 in Half Moon Bay. I will say that we've seen a decrease now, but because of a very concerted effort. And that effort was not only to increase patrols out there because a lot of times these affect our communities that are most vulnerable. They're absolutely our most vulnerable communities. And the folks that live in these communities oftentimes don't have the resources that other folks have. And so they're scared to let their kids outside and play. These are things that we all should have a right to be able to do. And so in some of these communities, we see that in Half Moon Bay in particular, we had a neighborhood in our Pilarcitos neighborhood region where we did have some gang activity. It was centered to a small group of people. And then in our Moon Ridge housing development, we had the same thing. I will say this, as soon as the sheriff caught wind of this, we were out there, we had a town hall meeting. We were meeting with those groups. We were meeting with our county partners to say, this is unacceptable. We need to do something. We need to do something about it back now. That's where our gang intelligence unit came into play, gathering intelligence information, getting it out there to our deputies and our folks so they know who to be looking for. Because oftentimes what we're seeing, it's a very small group of people that wreaks a lot of havoc on one area. So in this, as it pertains to some of the stuff that we're seeing here, this is a kind of a newer development. Our GIU unit investigated and learned of a new juvenile gang in North Fair Oaks. This is kind of a new thing for us, known as Loyalty Over Everything, LOE. It consists of approximately 15 members. Okay, look at the age groups there, starting as young as 15. We've seen younger than that. I've seen as young as 12, and even younger at times. To 21, it's a Norteño gang. Again, we talk about the most prevalent ones we're seeing, Norteño and Sereno. So this is just a subset of the overall Norteño gang, but their clique is called Loyalty Over Everything. Several members of this gang have already been arrested for multiple firearms arrests. Unfortunately, it's a lot easier to get your hands on firearms nowadays with 3D printing and some of the other ways that they can do it. Ghost guns, and the prevalence is out there. It's easier to get your hands on We saw that with some of our shootings in the Half Moon Bay. The guns were kind of floating around to different, they may have one or two, and then it floats around between different members. So, and then next slide. We also seen in recent years violence between Norteño and Sureño gangs along the San Mateo coastline. Again, the two probably main groups that we see out there is our coastside locos, and which is a Sureño sect, and then our Media Luna Norteños. They frequently engage in violent altercations, fights, vandalism, stabbings. We do see these vandalisms. We had a period of time there where they were vandalizing a section of downtown Half Moon Bay, very prevalent, where we had artwork up, where a lot of the community likes to gather. That's kind of an in your face, like, hey, we're here, and we want you to know that we're here. And that's what a lot of that graffiti is. It's led to a lot of fights. We've seen fights in Half Moon Bay High School. We've even seen fights at Cunha, right, which is the middle school. So again, something that we've been tracking on. So next slide. Again, going back to the most prominent gangs that we see here in this county, probably the most prominent that we see is the Hispanic gangs. We have seen a surge that kind of rises and falls with our Polynesian gangs, but they are active. We see them in San Mateo, specifically in North Fair Oaks. We have some. So they are, I would say, if you were to look at the scope of the gangs that we have out in this county, in terms of trends, these are probably the ones that we see the most of, with definitely the Hispanic gang probably being the most prevalent. Next slide. Again, most important thing, right? What are we doing about it? That's the key. So our detectives have conducted several, as Agent Arcilla or Sergeant Arcilla pointed out, they're doing tons of training. Again, really targeting students, parents, school staff, what to be aware of. Our GIU detectives have provided gang education classes in numerous high schools throughout the county, as well as staff at the Office of Education in Redwood City, Star Vista, and Star Vista gang recognition and prevention classes for parents. So again, that's us partnering with one of our local nonprofits. So as a force multiplier to go out there and get this information out. They've also provided yearly gang presentations to our STAR camp. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, to 80 juveniles between the ages of 12 and 17. Again, trying to target that younger audience. And then in Half Moon Bay, we've had educational town hall meetings, specifically in Spanish, to really make sure that we get the right population and we're communicating in the native tongue of what we feel the communities that are being impacted most by this. So next slide. We're working with community partners to ensure resources. Again, Star Vista, some of these other partners that I'm talking about, we're constantly collaborating. How can we join forces? Because we know that you guys have your network, we have our network, we join them together, it's a larger network of folks. Countywide agency collaborative, I'm sorry, that should say gang task force. But the gang task force is something that we run predominantly. It's a countywide collaborative. It's every agency participating in this. And it's run primarily during the summer months and other areas of time where when we look at data, we've seen an increase in gang activity. The goal out there is to saturate, is to provide a presence. In many cases, especially we saw this in Half Moon Bay, our most vulnerable communities are saying, we want more of you. We need to see more of your patrol cars coming up and down our streets. We're not seeing enough, right? And this is this is a force multiplier for us, because it brings together officers and deputies from all over our county, and they're able to focus on wherever the problem area is, whether it's on the coast, whether it's in Daly City, whether it's in San Mateo. All they're doing is going out and focusing on the attentions on those most vulnerable communities that are being impacted by gang violence. And they're doing a lot of things. Some of the things we can do, we have a lot of the gang members, especially the juvenile gang members that are on probation. We've got to keep them on the straight and narrow. So what we'll do is we can conduct probation searches to make sure, are you guys not, you got to stay away from the gang stuff. If you have gang owners, they're not supposed to have any gang material. They're not supposed to be hanging out with gang members. Providing hopefully resources and support to the parents and the families, right, that need it so desperately to help control the kids. And then recent data indicates a slight downturn. Again, I never really hang my hat on any downturn because I know it's so fragile, and any minute, right, it can increase. That's why the work that these folks do is so incredibly valuable, to gather that intelligence. Again, next slide. And this one is, if there's one thing I know that our sheriff has been committed to since she stepped off into this office is prevention, 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 right? We are really, truly only going to be successful by preventing this. Mitigation only does so much. Prevention is key, and it's got to start early. And so we've supercharged our prevention efforts under Sheriff Corpus's kind of tutelage, really kind of supercharged these wraparound services that we have. We have school resource officers. We're upping those numbers. We've actually incorporated something kind of new into our school resource officer program. We're now deploying therapy dogs. So they're golden doodles. This was a vision of the sheriff's way back when, and we finally got to bring it to fruition once she got elected. We started with one, Ben, the therapy dog, and Ben's awesome, and he was such a success. And his handler, Deputy Martinez, who's a school resource officer. Where we find that these dogs, where we see the importance of it is oftentimes bringing comfort to kids when they've suffered some type of traumatic crime. We use them with forensic interviews with children that are oftentimes the victims of heinous type crimes like sexual assaults and different crimes. We find that it's extremely comforting to the kids. In many cases, the kids feel a lot more open and free to talk about what happens, having that comfort right there with them. And we're really deploying it in the schools, and we're finding that, even when there's tension with some of the school kids, that just bringing that dog in helps to kind of reduce that tension. And there's some data, there's some anecdotal data out there that suggests that, dogs do really have a calming effect. And the breed that we have is phenomenal. You could scream and yell in front of this dog and they're not going to react. They're very calm, very mild-tempered dogs. And, a lot of times we'll bring them in and the kids are hugging them and petting them, and it's just a very soothing thing. So, but our school resource officers, we currently have 5. We're looking to expand that. The only reason we have 5 right now is because of our staffing being so critical. Our staffing numbers, when the sheriff started office, we were down over 100 deputies. We've got that number down to the high 60s just because we've gone on a full court press to get deputies into the office. And so as those numbers come up, we'll be kind of increasing those numbers and increasing our presence in the school. This is something that the sheriff is probably the most passionate about, is the school resource officers. And when I say school resource officers, they are not the enforcers. They are 100% the guardians. They are the guardians of the school. They're the ones that are going to ensure that there's a safety plan in place. They're the ones that really talking about procedural justice with our kids and showing them what procedural justice is all about, right? Having those important conversations with the kids. And sometimes those conversations maybe are conversations that are missing at home, that they're having with our school resource officers about prevention and about things they can do to protect themselves. Care On, very proud of Care On. It's something that we offer out of North Fair Oaks, but we've expanded it to our coast side. One of the things that we learned when we had the shootings and we did our town hall meeting with our coast side community is a lot of those members said, hey, we need something for us parents. We've got nothing. We've got nothing to help us with our kids. I've got 3 kids. I have to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. And so we heard that call. The sheriff heard that call. We heeded that. We brought out Care On. Care On provides parenting classes, prevention classes. It's really kind of centered around parents and family. How do we build the parenting? How do we build a family unit to better provide resources for the kids? That's gang awareness training. That's the drug awareness for them. That's techniques and tactics that they can use as a parent to better kind of be the guardian over their kids and know what their kids are doing and have that kind of network there, that support network to really help them out. So we're very proud about that. SAL, our Sheriff's Activities League, very robust. We're trying to build that out even more. We now just opened a site out on our coast side on Main Street. So coming in there, we're going to have a Sheriff's Activity League there where we'll have a place for kids to go and do their homework. Again, it's an alternative to hanging out on the streets. It's providing kids with structure. They get to meet and interface with our deputies and form some really actually lasting bonds. We see a lot of our Sheriff's Activities Leagues folks. A lot of these folks come up to be deputies. I met 3 of them today just walking through our jails. Oh, I started out as a SAL kid.
Oh.
I was living in North Fair Oaks. I was living out on the coast side. My parents didn't have the means, but we had SAL. And now this is what I'm doing. So it really is powerful for all of us to see that. And we know that Sheriff's Activities League, it's not only it's providing them educational opportunities, it's providing them with sports and ways to burn off steam. right? But it's that full wraparound services. It's not just sports, it's also activities, and it's things that can help them with tutoring, to help them get them engaged and start looking at colleges. We've had multiple success stories where we've had kids get scholarships and go off to college. So we're targeting community engagement. That's definitely been a goal of this sheriff, and we've supercharged our community engagement across all bureaus, and really trying to do more in community engagement and targeting our youth, right? Hearing more from our youth. What's important to you? What's on your mind? What can we do to better serve you? What can we do to better relate to you and communicate with you? Again, we talked about wraparound services. That's what a lot of these different services are. And then again, I talked about this earlier, services for our incarcerated parents, right? The goal is we do not want to keep them there. We want to get them out as soon as we can, get them back with their families, but equipped with whether it be anger management, drug addiction outlets, and then ways for them to be that better parent for their child. So really kind of full wraparound services.
So full child approach.
Absolutely, from the parent all the way down to the child, right? So, and then at this point, I'd open it up to questions. Again, if you have something related to the last topic or this, I'm here. If I can't answer it, one of my experts can for sure.
Right, should I call for public comment first?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll call for public comment on this item. If go ahead, Suki.
Members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 4A or 4B, please raise your hand in Zoom now. Or if you're here and okay, we'll take comments from this room first, and then we'll take Zoom comments.
Hi, my name is Melissa Wilson. I'm a member of the public. If somebody doesn't die of fentanyl, what are the sort of impacts on their brain as a result of use?
Yeah, really good question. In terms of anytime you ingest drugs of this magnitude, there is some permanent damage to the brain in terms of brain cells, damage to brain cells. The good news is, I guess we have many of them. And it depends on how much you've used. You know, I'll turn to maybe Agent Solano if he's got anything else to add to that. It does cause damage, but it really is dependent on how frequent you've used it, how much you've used, in terms of whether or not you're going to notice, and whether or not any of the impacts are noticeable.
So when you're overdosing on fentanyl, exactly like this sheriff just said, you're depriving your body of oxygen. So it's an acute respiratory illness. That's actually why AMPP, which is the chemical of fentanyl, was discovered. It got rejected by the FDA because it was too strong. Anyways, long story short, it was to just deprive your body of oxygen. So you're basically living, but you're not breathing. And so when you're not breathing, obviously you produce oxygen. It's kind of the same symptoms of drowning, basically.
Thank you.
I believe we had another hand raised here.
You talked about the packaging of fentanyl and the colorful, I can't see that part, they were little pebbles, right? And I have a hard time thinking about, the street dealer, the small time dealer, thinking about the strategy that you were saying, they're thinking about, the colors are targeting the younger people, right, to attract them. Who, at what level are they doing that? And I know that we have agents and we have people trying to prevent this on the street level, but I kind of think about it and kind of in the small dealer, what are we doing? Like for those people who are strategizing, okay, we're gonna put this on the street and kids are gonna be attracted to it. It seems to me that's kind of far removed from the small dealer. I don't think that the guy on the street is thinking in those, I'm gonna have clients for life and I'm gonna do this and that. He's just dealing, right? But there's some other type of organization that's thinking what you were saying about the colors. Where are those and is there a task force targeting the big guys? Basically?
Absolutely. So, and I'll have Agent Solano maybe kind of add in, but I talked about that collaborative kind of approach, and I know that our agents work with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. They're working with HSI. Sometimes historically people think HSI is just dealing with in things with immigration. That's a small piece of what they do. They are very much involved in the trafficking and determining the sources of trafficking of drugs. that are coming in. A lot of these drugs are coming in across our southern border. They get channeled through there. They come up through there. It's unfortunately, fairly easy to get that stuff up across the borderline and into our communities. And so we're working with the DEA, we're working with those other sources to try to really target what's the main source and try to interdict that. So oftentimes what will happen when they get the street dealer, we'll take the street dealer, we'll debrief them, but we're often looking at where's the supply? Is there a way for us to trace from that street dealer where they're getting their supply from, their hub? Because what you'll see is it'll kind of be a regional hub, right? There's somebody that's getting it and then distributing it out to the different street dealers. So we can find that hub leads us to the next source. So it very much is a very intricate investigation. I'll have Agent Solano maybe touch on that again, on what you guys try to do in terms of working it backwards to get to that kind of main source.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely work with federal agents on the local level. If we have a small dealer, we will either try to gain cooperation from who we got the narcotics from. If we also work with the DA's office with that, right? We can't promise any deals, but we do try to understand that we need to cut off the supply. We also have individuals in the public that get paid to go make undercover purchases and confidential purchases, and we work those investigations. When we get to the larger scales, once we kind of leave the San Francisco, Oakland area, that's been working with federal authorities. We've done cases all the way up to Oregon, all the way down to LA, and we've really just covered the state of it.
It's really important I think that he hit on a key point there. Sometimes, a lot of times we see these cases right here in San Mateo County and they're spider webbing out, right? There's tentacles and they're going down to LA, they're going to these other places, other states, Texas, even, all over, because of just where that case may lead them. Again, the goal is, as you touched on, right? The goal is to get to the highest point in that food chain if we can, and otherwise cut off that supply to have the biggest impact on the supply chain.
Thank you.
We
gotta go with public comment.
Could you state your name for the record? Could you state your name?
Arnold Morales.
Sorry?
Arnold Morales.
Okay, thank you. We'll take speakers from Zoom. First is Becca Keeler, followed by Clara Jekyll. Becca, please proceed.
Thank you for a really great presentation, some really good information. I'm glad to hear that you're working with the schools, and also glad to hear that you're working in our jails. And I just was curious, I can't see if there's anybody here from probation, but I'm wondering specifically what might be being done for our youth in detention at YSC and so on in regards to drug and alcohol, but specifically the fentanyl you're speaking about, any drug education.
Thank you, Becca. Next speaker is Clara Jekyll.
That
Clara.
was a question,
but it's public comment.
But she was working.
Go ahead.
Answer a question.
Yeah. So thank you. My name is Clara Jekyll. I live in Redwood City, and I also want to thank for the presentation. I'm really concerned, that kids are growing up feeling so excluded and getting so little support in the communities that it seems to them that their best chance at feeling a sense of belonging or having any outlook for advancement is a gang. And that goes especially for Latina kids that are impacted by systemic racism. And so I really agree that prevention is key. And I think that for effective prevention, we need to make sure that all families have stable housing, food security, healthcare, and educational and job opportunities, like the scholarships that were mentioned, so that kids can see a real future for themselves. Those are the factors that will really give kids a meaningful, healthy path for their lives to choose as an alternative to gangs. So I just want to say, I hope that's where we'll direct our community's investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. No additional comments, so that's the end of public comment.
Thank you so much. And we can ask those questions during when probation does their report out. I just wanted to keep to the rules. Commissioner Bocanegra, you had a question.
Oh, yes, I was gonna ask, so Star Camp, could our judge at Azadi make referrals, like once kids are incarcerated, because you have great resources? It sounds like you have a grasp on gangs and the therapeutic environment. And I think that would be awesome if these kids who fall into the system could be referred to something like Star Camp to be able to access those awesome services you guys are offering.
Yeah, great. And thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up. Star Camp is something we're really proud of. We run it every summer. We've been doing it for many years now at the Sheriff's Office. I think it's over 20 plus years of Star Camp. It's to give youth that would otherwise have an opportunity. We definitely target, again, our most vulnerable communities. And a lot of times these kids, this is the only camp they've ever gone to. And Star Camp is an opportunity to bring them together. They teach them life skills. They give them an experience. It's out in the Honda. They get to hike, they get to swim, they get to do archery, they get to do horseback riding. They spend, the camp counselors are deputies. Often, many of them are deputies. So they're hanging out and, you know, sleeping in a cabin with the deputy every night, and really forming these really strong lasting relationships. I've gone out there now twice. Again, this is something that the sheriff's been really passionate about. I'm glad that the commissioner brought this up. You go out there and you listen to these kids speak, and you just feel so good. You feel good. It brings tears to your eyes. For a lot of these kids, they're like, you know, this was a life-changing event for me. I formed new friends. I feel better. This is my, you know, one girl put it best. She was describing what Star Camp meant to her. She goes, and it's an escape from my reality. It's an escape from what I face every day where I live, and just not having, you know, unfortunately being exposed to gangs and some of the other things that she was exposed to. And she said, I get to come here. I get to be in the wilderness. I get to be around like-minded individuals. And, you know, she's gone on now. That same girl's gone on. She's now a counselor for us.
Great.
And so we're seeing this track where a lot of the kids are coming up. They do that education. And I think, to your point, Commissioner, I don't know about referrals. I'm sure we're open to it. I will say this. Our sheriff is not one to say no to many things.
Yeah.
And so we've even upped the ante. One of the things that she did this year to be more inclusive with this is we brought paraprofessionals in. So we now have campers that are on the spectrum, that are on the autistic spectrum, and other kids, because again, it's all about inclusivity for her. And so we actually have the paraprofessionals paired right there, staying with them at the camp to ensure that they get to do the same activities as every other kid there. And so I think, you know, again, if you were to ask her, the answer is usually yes. It's just, how do we figure it out? Because there is a ratio of how many kids we can actually bring out there. And I could say that demand is there. We've even opened it up. The sheriff has it. We have a really good partnership with East Palo Alto. We know that we have neighboring jurisdictions with East Palo Alto. And so we offer it up to East Palo Alto every year, where we get some youth from East Palo Alto that get to join us and participate in our Star Camp because of the partnership that we have with the city of East Palo Alto and East Palo Alto Police Department. So I think it's a great.
We hope you would ask her.
So yeah, I will
Yeah.
definitely bring that forward to her. But I will say this, like I said, you know, she's usually a yes person. It's just a matter of, do we have the resources and the amount of people based on, and that list is running. But a lot of times the way we get the referrals is deputies will go out, they'll call, and they'll say, man, this family really could use this.
Yeah.
And they'll get it that way. They'll get it through Sal. We get it through advertising. But the wait list is large, which is a good thing.
What's the capacity?
I think, you know, I don't want to speak out of term. I think it's 100. It's a little over 100. It's between 100 and 200 campers. It's about
The summer for the whole summer.
yeah, like I think it might be right around the 100 point, you know. But the sheriff, like I said, she's always kind of pushing those boundaries if she can, because she just wants to make sure that people have access. She's all about making sure no one gets left behind, right? And so we've kind of pushed some of those boundaries in some of those areas, especially when we brought on the paraprofessionals.
That's wonderful. So the capacity is 100 kids. How many sessions do they do each summer?
We do one camp, yeah, for a week long.
It's free?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the fees are so minimum that it's.
Okay. And if they needed them waived, they would
Yes.
get waived, because that's probably another thing on our yes list.
Yes, we heavily rely on donations. And so, you know, we also have funding that we pull right out of our budget, our sheriff's office budget. Again, the level of commitment that we have from the sheriff is such that, you know, she'll even draw money from our own budget. Although the main source is we try to make the main source donations that come in.
Okay.
So we really do a push every year to get those donations.
Can you include us on any of those mailings for those?
Absolutely. That would be fantastic if I could include you.
Yeah, please. Okay, questions regarding gangs, Commissioner Swope?
You were talking about SROs, and there's a lot of controversy about SROs.
Yes.
I'm wondering what kind of requirements you have for them. We did a study about 4 or 5 years ago, and there were some SROs that were really, really involved with the schools, and there were others that only came if there was a problem. And there's a big difference, because I talked to SROs who were invited to dinner at the kids' homes, and who really, you know, really did the guardian instead of enforcer. So and I've also, it seemed like a lot of them were limited to 2-year terms.
Yes.
So there was a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
So how do you manage your SROs?
So the way we manage it in ours, again, I say this because this is something that the sheriff's just so passionate about. She was a school resource officer again herself, right? So this is just who she is. It's the way she was raised in this business. And so when you have somebody that's been there and done that and knows the impacts of it, it's really great when they're kind of steering the ship, saying, this is why this is important. So the rotation for us is 3 to 5 years. Most of them do a 5-year term. So as a matter of fact, we just had a guy term out because he got promoted to sergeant. But oftentimes, you know, those same people will come back and help out at Star Camp, even if they're not assigned as school resource officers. But we do that on purpose, and the reason for that is for 2 reasons. One reason is career development, right? We're constantly we want our folks to evolve. We want them to see different aspects of the job. We want them to be, you know, in with our incarcerated population and learn the needs and how to better deal with that population, right? We want them to be out in our different patrol bureaus and know what the community members in Millbrae need is very different than what the community members in North Fair Oaks need and or in Woodside or Petrola Valley, right? Very different needs. And the more that we can expose them to that, the more well-rounded they become as deputies, the more able they are to really kind of grasp the depth of the different needs that we have here in this county, which I think is very diverse, quite honestly. But we try to keep them in school resource officer for, like I said, it's a 3 to 5 year window, and the average that we're seeing is about 5 years. For most of them, they're doing a full term. And again, the sheriff's looking to increase that. Again, one of the things I touched on earlier, the sheriff is all about the guardian model. She does not really want, as a matter of fact, if a case comes in where it's going to require some kind of enforcement action where there's kind of, you need to do something about it, enforcement action, she doesn't want the school resource officers necessarily doing that, because again, we don't want the kids to view them necessarily as the enforcer. We want them to view them as the guardian, right? Hey, I'm here to protect your campus. I'm here to keep it secure. I'm that person that you can come to when you need advice that's law enforcement related. I'm the person that usually is going to sit down with you and use procedural justice to work something out, right? To come to a conclusion that doesn't involve the criminal justice system, right? Because what we're trying to do is keep kids completely out of that system, right? Because we know once you get them into that system, right, unfortunately, it can manifest itself without the proper intervention, right? So the more that we can handle it at the lowest level possible, depending on what the crime is. You know, there are some things, unfortunately, that do call for criminal case, for prosecution, in some cases incarceration, although we never are trying to incarcerate our youth. It's just not the goal, right? We want to keep them in a steady home environment. That's the ideal place for them. But it is very much the guardian mentality that we have, and we preach that when we talk to our school resource officers. It's very clear what those expectations are. You know, you guys are to provide resources to the school. You guys are to provide training as relevant as the school comes up with topics and things that they think are relevant for the student body where you can come into play, and they do that. You guys are to help resolve things using procedural justice. And once it kind of gets to that enforcement arm, a lot of times we're calling it a deputy from patrol to kind of keep the sanctity of that position.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
I just had a question about procedural justice. What is procedural justice?
You know, it's all about kind of explaining to a kid. It's making sure that whatever the punishment is or the outcome really fits what the crime is, right? It's like, and it's giving both people an opportunity to speak, right? If you have a dispute, if there's a fight, right? Procedural justice is to bring both parties in and not just listen to one side of that party, right? It's both parties trying to find the commonality, what caused it, right? What are the commonalities that both these opposing factions have in common? And how can we bring them together, right? So that I understand where you're coming from and you understand where I'm coming from for a better outcome. That's really what we do with procedural justice.
Is that like restorative justice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing is restorative justice, using a system, like you said, restorative in nature, right? Where we're bringing back to that person, hey, why would you do, this is why what you did was wrong. This is how it impacted this person, right? And then vice versa, right? I think the key piece that we really, really focus on is the impacts, because a lot of times kids don't really think about the impact, right? So
that's diversion then.
So yeah. Awesome. Well, we restorative in nature. Diversion is a whole separate ballgame. Diversion is when someone commits a crime, right? How can we take that crime and divert them? And a lot of times we can get them into training, into other avenues. I know in the county, that's a big push in San Mateo County. We do a lot. I know that you'll have a report out from our probation chief. They've done a lot in the way of diversion with our youth. But it's taking a crime, a low-level crime, and realizing that, hey, what's the underlying symptom, right? Or this is the cause, right? This is a symptom. What we always find with most youth crime, it's symptomatic of a greater cause, right? Of a greater issue. So when you look at procedural justice, when you look at restorative justice, when you look at diversion, trying to divert a kid who's already been arrested, it's how do we get to the root cause and nip it in the bud at the root cause. So.
Okay, I'm looking at our time here. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I just have one question, and it relates to guns. The kids tell me that it's easier to get a gun than it is to get a pack of cigarettes. And several kids tell me that. And so I'm very concerned about that. What are we seeing as far as trafficking of guns?
I'll turn to maybe my PIU detectives, because I know that they're seeing it. They can speak as it relates to what we see with our gangs. So, but maybe not on a broad spectrum. Just more.
A lot of times the gangs are running the
yes.
Absolutely. When it comes to gangs, there's a highly probability that they have guns or have an easy way to get access to guns. Again, we work a lot with ATM. They're also part of our unit. They're using guns for violence. For a lot of times we see them on social media where they're flashing guns, and that's what used to be back in the day. They're posted up in a corner showing guns and selling drugs. Now it's done online. But as far as them getting access to guns, I would say that it has become easier than in the past. Where they're getting guns from out of state, or they're getting guns from illegal residential burglaries that are stolen from a vehicle, or 3D printed, which don't even have a serial number nowadays. And they're very, the likelihood to find where that gun came from is limited. We are extremely committed into finding firearms. We're constantly doing surveillance, whether it's physical surveillance, social media, contacting, like my partner said, confidential informants. We got to find the source of the firearms, and like the sheriff said, also the spider web of where those guns come from. Because if there's one, they're usually trafficking firearms that are at a greater amount. So that's our daily goal is to find firearms.
Thank you.
That's really our goal is firearms. So
I appreciate that.
that's it.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. I know this was a long presentation. I know it's late, it's dinner time. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And I thank you guys for the feedback and some of the suggestions. Really appreciate that. So thank you all for your time. And I will definitely get the word out on Star Camp.
Yes, thank you.
As well.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay, and with that, we will move on to updates from our system partners. And I will start because Ron Reyes gave me his information. So Ron reports, he regrets that he is unable to be here tonight, but he reports that during the period of June 26th to July 29th, there was a total of 39 case appointments. The breakdown was 14 cases were detentions, 4 of them contained a 707B allegation. Out of custody arraignments were 19, and 4 contained 707B allegations. Number of sealing petitions was 14, that's significant. And number of police calls to the Miranda line were 39. So that is his report for the month.
And can you send that to me?
I certainly can. So do we need to call public comment on each one of
We
these?
can do it at the end.
Thank you. Okay, probation department. Hi, good evening.
Assistant Deputy Chief of Juvenile Division. Hope everybody had a nice evening. We have 156 diversion and court clients, active clients, and 184 supervision clients for a total of 340.
Hi, everyone. Sanam Aram, Institutions Superintendent, and currently we have 32 youth. Out of those 32, 4 are female, 28 are male. We have 10 youth on EMP, and we're serving 6 youth that are out-of-county youth, 3 of them from Alameda County, 1 from San Francisco, and 2 from Santa Clara. And just to be clear, they're in not on EMP.
Thank you so much. Do we have the racial breakdown of the 32?
Sure. 24 Hispanic, 3 African American, 2 Asian, 2 Polynesian, and 1 mixed race.
Thank you so much.
Chair?
Yes.
I have a question. Thanks, Sanam. Is that just the youth that are in the facility, the racial breakdown?
Yes.
Okay, is it possible for, not tonight, because that's 340 students, I mean, youth is a lot, but maybe at the next one, if we can also get the cultural makeup on those, or maybe we can have it in a report if possible attached.
I'm pretty sure it's on our website.
Is it? Okay. Well,
Yes, it's quarterly.
Yeah.
On the
Okay,
website.
is it possible maybe to have that in our agenda, because if people want to get that information.
The problem is it's outdated, so it's quarterly, so it's not current data. So what's on the website can be 2-3 months behind, depending on where we are in the quarter. So it's not real time, but it would give us an idea where things were. We could start tracking that and then maybe distributing that, and then if we have questions on that, we can bring it at the monthly meeting. Would that help?
Well, I'm just sharing information really with the community. That's
okay.
That's where the questions come from.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to suggest if we can do that, even if it's 2 or 3 or a month behind, it gives us real data to begin tracking so we can see the fluctuations of numbers.
So why don't I do that printout then? When the new quarter comes out, I will then include that in our agenda packet with those new numbers, because it'll be the same for 3 months, right? So if I distribute it that way, and right then we'd all have them and we'd know what we're looking at, and then we could track it to see, okay, well, what happened in the next quarter, or how did that change?
So just for clarification, you said 32 total youth incarcerated and then 342 total on probation, was that?
340 I had.
340, okay, totally on.
Yeah, 156 in diversion.
Going through diversion and court or supervision.
Yeah,
And
so within juvenile probation's umbrella.
services, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then Ms. Keeler did have a question that she asked during public comment about what was being done as far as fentanyl and opioids in the juvenile hall. And I know that there's an opioid protocol that you have for just that. I don't know if that's correctional health protocol or if that's
BHRS.
It's BHRS's protocol.
And also just so that, and also correctional health as
Okay.
well. We have Narcan in the facility currently, and it's accessible to all the youth as well as the staff.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that added information. Anybody else with questions for probation?
And you said 4 girls total were incarcerated?
Correct.
Okay, next up is behavioral health. I saw Rahina, there she is. Hello, Rahina, would you like to give an update?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Regina Moreno, I'm the Clinical Services Manager with Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. Typically, Ornette also attends, Ornette Shoham attends this meeting. She is the unit supervisor for the YSC BHRS team. And I wasn't sure if the folks here knew, but she was recently promoted as the permanent unit supervisor for our team. She had been working at a class for about 5-6 months. So I guess next time she's on here, maybe you all can congratulate her. And then the other, we are currently seeking, we're hiring for 2 clinician positions. We have support from other teams for clinicians that have been with us, but we will finally, crossing our fingers, get 2 clinician positions coming on board within the next month for one of them, and then within the next 2 months for the second one. And then I also just piggyback on what Sanam just mentioned, that as far as this presentation that was just done, we do have our psychiatrist, our child youth psychiatrist, Dr. Nazrin Bashiri, who works closely with correctional health to provide medication assisted treatment for any youth that have a cannabis use, alcohol use, stimulant use, nicotine use, and opioid use. And she will then, assess them and prescribe as needed. She also has used the Narcan as they leave the facility. She will provide for those who have been using opioids. She will provide Narcan. So just wanted to add that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to hear about the 2 new clinicians. It's not easy to hire clinicians right now.
Yeah, they're coming. They're not. But
yes. Thank you so much for that update. I do not see John Fong from Children and Family Services, and I do not see Sarah Notch from the County Office of Education. So could we please call for public comment?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 5A, B, or C, please raise your hand in Zoom, or if you want to speak from this meeting room, please raise your hand. Okay, no hands are raised, so back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. So that brings us to our next item, which is actually an action item for a vote. It was brought up during our last meeting. We've been having some wonderful presentations, and it was brought up by a commissioner. Well, what are we going to do with this information? So I had talked about meeting with the chief and talking about what we could do to get these programs going. But what I think we needed to really do first is we needed to have an action item where we actually voted to recommend these programs that we've brought in, we've learned about, we've heard about. And so that's what this item is about. We received 3 presentations. One was on the Pine Grove Youth Conservation Camp. The other one was mindfulness-based substance abuse training. And then lastly, the Liuna Laborers International Union Apprenticeship Preparedness Program. So what I wanted to do was call for a vote. What this would do would allow us to make the formal recommendation as the commission to the Probation Department, Board of Supervisors, Juvenile Court, that we feel that these programs would be beneficial to our children, and we'd formally be recommending that they be put into place. And so that's what this. So do I need to do them individually or all at once?
You can do them all at once, and then we'll take public comment.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes.
Possible to have a quick discussion.
Yes, go ahead. Sure, absolutely.
So I think this is great. I think this is a great way to move forward with providing these services to our youth. I just have one question.
Yes.
So once we approve it, what is the next steps?
So then
what processes do we have for moving forward?
So once it becomes a formal recommendation of the commission and not just a couple people's good idea, right? Then we would present that to the stakeholders and ask that these, if possible, if we could put these programs into place. It's like putting our stamp of approval, our recommendation, and bringing it forward. And of course, if they invited us to help in that process, we could even form a subcommittee to do that. But it's just to make it a formal thing.
So follow up to that is so that we are making that formal statement and taking a stand. I would like to see a timeline with each of these programs where we're going to, what's our targeted time of when we're going to start implementing. For example, if it needs to go before Board of Supervisors, do we have some sort of estimated time of when that's going to happen and then moving forward? Because I think some of this also may have most probably a budget attached to this. And so I like to also see how much that's going to be, and then just so we can have some sort of timeline so we feel that the ball is moving.
And I guess we would only be able to get that after we have once we formally recommend it, then we have the meeting. We would see if it's doable, if it's not doable, and what it would need to get there. But yes, I agree. That would be perfect. Yes.
I would feel more comfortable about recommending that they look at the feasibility of implementing these programs.
Okay.
Because we don't know. All we know is what somebody told us for 40 minutes.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I know
Well,
Paul and I have done a
I think we
considerable
need
amount of
to
work.
give them time to look at it.
Yeah. Well, this is just our recommendation.
Yeah.
To the chair.
Yeah.
So to her point is, of course, all the stakeholders will be at the initial meeting, right? To have that conversation, I would assume.
No,
No?
I think we would start with probation and then we would go from there to see.
Right, so for example, let's say with Leonard Wood who came in and presented with
Yes.
Luna, right? That he would be present at that meeting, so should probation have, I'm sure they're gonna have questions. He's there to share more information that they may not have been able to ask during the presentation. So that's what I'm saying.
I think I would defer to the chief on who he wants to be there. I think I mean, we can work out, when we have a retreat coming up, we can work out all the details on how we're gonna do this going forward.
Right.
I just wanted to have something formal in place because we didn't.
So, just to clarify, Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm the clerk, right?
Yeah.
But I think what the committee wants to do is recommend these three to probation and 3 other departments, right? And then they get to decide
Yes.
if it's feasible, if it's, if
Yes.
they can move forward or not, but your duties is just to recommend
Yes.
these off
Yes.
to the departments, right?
Yes.
And then they decide who they want to,
Yes.
if they want to offer them or not, if they want to not offer them, if it's not feasible. I think
Exactly.
that's the thing that you're trying to do for this. Right?
Yes, yes, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, does that sound fine? Can we go ahead and call for a vote? Any other questions?
So the motion is that we recommend that they look into the feasibility
Yeah,
of implementing these 3 programs.
yes, perfect,
I have a question.
yes.
With regard to the programs that are being recommended, I know that the letter C says Laborers International. I'm not sure what that really is, but any of the kids, some of the kids are, when they get out, they're gonna be 22 to 25, and finding a job would be extremely important for them to continue in a positive way.
Yes.
Is there program being considered to address that? Like, labor, maybe, I'm just gonna simplify, welding or something where the kids that we have in there are attracted to, and that will be successful in learning a skill that might enable them to kind of continue their life after custody in a
Yes.
positive way.
Yes, the Liuna Laborers International Apprenticeship Program, they're in several juvenile halls and different prisons in the state of California. And that's exactly what they do. They teach like forklift driving. They teach many different skills. They're not a carpenter, they're not a plumber, they're a laborer. So they really have a extensive list of duties that they can do. And they offer a living wage. It's a union. It's they can get benefits, pension, all of that. And yes, so we very much want to build our vocational program because we recognize that it's very difficult to live in San Mateo County, and these kids being incarcerated have even less of a chance of success than our kids who are out in the community, and it's hard enough for them, right? So we want to make sure that they get as many programs as possible. And these were just the 3 presentations that we had over the last 2 months, but we're always looking for more vocational programs and ways for our children to succeed.
I think that part of it is extremely important because they're gonna get out.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much.
So I
Yes.
suggest, the gentleman from Liuna came and gave a presentation at one of the parent meetings, and I should.
I do what you
Okay.
said.
She said that the gentleman from Liuna is on YouTube, so he can see it if he wants to.
Previous meeting.
Yes,
And the
okay,
link- and the link is
so
in
we
the
have a
minutes.
motion, Susan clarified
Need
the
a
motion
second.
and Paul seconded, so we need a roll call vote for this, correct?
Or you can do it all unanimously.
Okay.
But let me see if there's any public comment for this motion.
Okay.
Members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 6, A, B, and C, please raise your hand in Zoom or in this room. Okay, no hands are raised, so you
Thank you
can.
so much.
Oh, Chief King's hand is
Oh,
raised.
Chief,
Oh, I'm
okay,
sorry. Go ahead, Chief Key.
thank you, Paul.
Just for the purpose of this, grouping of recommendations, through CPOC, we're actually already working with Pine Grove. So it's not that we need to, I'm not quite sure how best to phrase this. So it doesn't seem as if I'm being dismissive of the recommendation, but I've been working with Pine Grove since the beginning of the kind of development of the program. I've been to the program. I've been supportive of the program. If a person wanted to attend the program, I've spoken with the courts on many occasions about my support of Pine Grove. So you guys can recommend Pine Grove if you like, but it's not something that I really need to have you guys kind of double down on my support for a program I already support. So I just want to kind of publicly kind of make that clear. So just for the record, I want to say that I think Pine Grove is a wonderful program. It's a space that I've already, been very much a part of from the very beginning, and, highly think that it's a wonderful opportunity for the right young people who are open to, maybe potentially taking part of its programming. So just want to say that for the official record.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to hear that. I think it's a wonderful program too. Thank you so much, Chief.
Yeah, I've said that in several spaces, and I'm not quite sure how we haven't had the opportunity to discuss it here, but I've certainly made my my support of that program known.
Thank you. Okay, so yes.
Before we go to a vote, so I guess I'll just make the same recommendation. Thank you, Chief King, for sharing your support with that and providing an update, because I personally didn't know. So if possible, since you're already having those conversations with the folks at Pine Grove, is it possible, I would like to see some sort of, you could provide an update on where you're at with those talks, if that's possible, please.
I'm sorry, ma'am, are you speaking to me?
Yes.
I'm not anywhere with the talks, ma'am. There are no talks. It's a program that's there, and if there's a need for a referral that comes up through the normal court processes, there's nothing for me to do. There's no intermediary necessary. There's nothing for probation to do in that space. That's something that goes through the normal court processes. And if those processes, the attorneys deemed it necessary that a young person could go and take advantage of that, we would be supportive of that in terms of how we would go through that process. That's not something where I hold the keys to that process, ma'am.
Just so I understand, Chief, it was my understanding when we went and did the tour of Pine Grove, they said that the counties need to enter an MOU in order to use the facility. Is that not accurate?
That's not necessarily how that works, ma'am, no.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
so like I said, if through the court processes, no different than like a placement referral or something like that back in the more traditional times were necessary, then we would do our processes and we would make that happen.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got to get going.
No, I did. Just for clarification on my part, then Chief King, then I misunderstood, as I thought that because we had Commissioner Rasmussen attend a tour with Mr. Reyes, that was my understanding, that we're not doing those referrals. Yeah. So this is the reason why I requested that and said what I said. But
yeah, no, and I'm glad we were able to make it known publicly, because to my knowledge, no one has brought to our attention, us being probation, that there was a candidate for Pine Grove, and that somehow the perception was that we were not being supportive of that transition.
No, I don't think.
Yeah, because if that was the case, we certainly want to be supportive of any young person moving forward into such a wonderful program. So if that exists out there, I mean, certainly they should let us know, and we would certainly make sure that we get right involved ASAP to make sure that transition occurs.
Well, just for clarification for the record, I don't want it to seem as though there was a child that didn't get the services or somehow you prevented that. That is not at all what we were saying. We wanted to learn more about it, so we took a tour, we found out more about it, we learned about it. We had them come and present to everyone so they could learn about it. So it's no way a reflection on anything you're doing. It's just we're educating ourselves and saying, hey, this is a great program for our kids. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page, because like I said, it's a great space. And so if they're the normal, the appropriate parties are the ones, going through that process, making the appropriate referrals, and it's deemed to be a place where the rehabilitative process is going to help that young person probation is going to be supportive of that transition.
Thank you. Okay, for this, yeah,
Quick question.
yes.
Which kids are candidates to go to this program?
I can provide that information and I can put it in the minutes, but I will provide you. It's a long list of criteria, but I'm happy to provide that to you and include it in the meeting minutes. Okay, so if we can take a vote on the motion as Commissioner Swope presented and as Commissioner Bocanegra seconded. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those wishing to abstain? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, I know that we have 5 minutes left, but we did have several absences tonight, so this will make it relatively quick. I am leading the inspection of Camp Kemp, the juvenile hall, and the Elysian receiving home and temporary shelter. Commissioner Sofik Nori is doing Canyon Oaks, and Commissioner Amaya Nori is doing education. I also have to note that we did receive in the last week from BSCC 2 police departments that held juveniles at the police station. San Bruno actually held 31 kids, which seemed to me like a mistake because I've never seen that number since I've been on the commission. And in comparison, South San Francisco had 1. So I don't know if that was an error, but I did schedule those inspections. So those meeting dates are included in the agenda here. Those inspection dates are included with the addition of the San Bruno inspection will take place on August 7th. And do you have any updates to provide for Canyon Oaks?
Yeah, so I've been in contact with Canyon Oaks and I've scheduled a day for the inspection. They give us some days to work, so there's some flexibility. We doesn't work for the rest of the team, but it's tentatively the 26th of August in the morning.
Okay. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So we should be by our next meeting having some updates on where things stand as far as getting these inspections completed and presented out to the public. So do we want to call for public comment on this item?
Sure, members of the public, if you wish to comment on item 7, please raise your hand in Zoom or in the meeting room. Okay, no hands are raised.
Okay, thank you so much. And then project updates. So Commissioner Blanco, her educational summit is included in the agenda packet. It was very well done and very much looking forward to this summit. Do you have anything that you'd like to say on the project now?
Well, for sake of time, and I can talk a lot about it, but it's a lot of writing in there, a lot of words, and so it's in the agenda packet. And so if anyone should have questions for me, please feel free to reach out. I can give you my number, and I was gonna ask you if we can provide a list of all the commissioners.
Yes, it's in the Google
Is it?
Drive.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So wasn't sure if we had one, but I do want to allow an opportunity for this gentleman right here, if he can just really quickly introduce himself. And
Sure.
what organization he's with, and then I will continue a really quick report.
Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon or good evening, everybody. My name is Raimundo Armendariz. I work at the National Center for Youth Law. I'm the Senior Policy Associate with our site here in San Mateo County. I also work in Fresno County, San Joaquin County, Santa Clara County, as well as sometimes I go as far as Riverside, but we have a different link for that site. But I'm definitely working here in San Mateo County. So if any of you want to chime in or meet with me, find out more about our work here. We've been here the last 2 years, working with Paul, of course, Bocanegra here. San Mateo County is also with Redwood City's Pell Center and other sites here in North Fair Oaks, Redwood City, and East Palo Alto as well. So if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, and I really interact with community-based organizations, grassroots organizations, as well as system stakeholders, like, of course, the probation department, district attorney's office, public defender's office, or I think we actually have a public defender's office right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's who we interact with here.
Thank you so much for being here.
So I appreciate him attending the meeting tonight. Thank you to Paul for inviting him tonight. So his organization is willing to work with us, partner with us for the pregnancy prevention summit.
Oh, wonderful.
I reached out to PCRC. I will be having a meeting with the executive director, Melissa Jones. I've also reached out to San Mateo County Office of Ed. I still need to follow up with them. Charles Hansen for the Peninsula Family Service. Shaquille Ali, who's going to be our incoming commissioner fairly soon with his nonprofit. And also, it sounds like with the presentation that we received tonight with the sheriff's office, I'm going to be reaching out to their office to come and have a conversation and present maybe, gotta figure out how to work them in, but that's, the report we received today is totally right along the lines of delinquency.
Wonderful.
So anyways, that's just really quick.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that important work. Commissioner Ginevra was not here to report on foster care, but I know that she's been working diligently on that. Commissioner Jackson is not here. He works with me on substance abuse treatment. Right now, we're looking to get a tour of one of the hospitals down in Santa Clara. I think it's Valley Medical Center that has the first in the region detox center where you guaranteed a bed right that same day. So we're looking to go do a tour of that, and tonight's presentation also helped with that as well. So those are the project updates. Do we need to call for public comment?
Sure.
Thank
Members
you.
of the public, if you wish to comment on item 8, please raise your hand now in Zoom. I do have one speaker, Shaquille Ali. You'll have time to speak now. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate my respect and admiration for Jennifer Blanco for inviting me to apply to be on the commission, and Paul Bocanegra also for his support, and just say that I'm excited to help organize this summit. I think that a lot of the things that were spoken about tonight, as far as prevention and finding out the why youth are even involving themselves in gang activity and other, damaging things to their future, that this summit could be a part of helping to get to those solutions. And I think that we need to involve as many youth as possible, especially the youth that are incarcerated, to be at the summit to help us with those strategies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is that all for public
Yep,
comment?
that's end of public
Okay,
comment.
all right, and I just have one announcement to make it, if others, I'm not sure if anyone else does. Just want to announce that the annual retreat will take place Saturday, August 10th. It'll be at the Red Morton Community Center in Redwood City, and it will be open for the public to attend from 1 to 4 p.m. Does anybody else have any? All right, so I apologize, it's 7:17, the meeting is, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all.